Snapchat, you'll just been the first one to get it. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, Real Live with the Real Secrets of Money with your host, myself, Damon the Agent, also known as the Extraordinary. And I welcome each and every one of you. Today is Friday, March the 27th, 2026. It is the last day of the month of March. Y'all, time is flying. Woo, listen. It was just Christmas, if you ask me. 3 months later, and then 3 months from now, it's going to almost be the 4th of July. Time is really flying. So, as always, I like to first, again, thank each and every one of you all for joining me. And if you haven't followed me on all social media platforms, please do so. I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Threads, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Thread. So, hold on. I forgot to. I'm sorry. I forgot I had that on there. So again, I always like to jump into the wonderful world of real estate. And today I'm going to talk about what is a rate buy down. What is a rate buy down and how this is very, very critical for people who are out there looking to purchase a home, and people are so focused on the interest rate. People are always asking, what's the current interest rate? What's the current interest rate? And a lot of times, people, it's good to focus on the interest rate, but most importantly, it's more important to focus on your monthly payment, because regardless of what the interest rate is, you can always refinance, but you always want to make sure that your monthly payment is affordable to you. So, what is a rate buy down? Okay, a rate buy down is when someone, either the buyer, seller, or builder, if you're buying new construction, pays money up front to lower the mortgage interest rate, which reduces the monthly payment. This can either be or permanent. It depends. Now, there are two types of rate buy down. The temporary buy down, which is most popular right now, because what this does is this normally gets people into a home, and then after a couple of years, they can refinance or they can sell their home. And they don't even have to wait a couple of years. But here's the thing. The temporary buy down lowers the rate for the first few years, okay? Then it goes back to the full rate. For example, if the current interest rate is 6%, I'm just going to use that, and you buy the rate down to 4%, what you have to understand is year one, the rate lowers 2%, and then, excuse me, if it's at the current rate is 6%, and then you get about a rate down to 4%, after year one, it'll go to 5%. And then after year two, it'll go to 6%. And then year three is the full percent. So those 2% will be down those first 2 years, but by the third year, we'll go back to the full rate, whichever that was at the time that you purchased the home. Now, for example, like I said, you can always refinance, and this is to be taken into consideration. You can always refinance after 6 months of you getting a mortgage. So even if, like, hypothetically, you go into a home, you buy the rate down, and then the mortgage rates drop substantially low, you can actually refinance. Now, the permanent buy down is a little different. It works the same, but it's a little different. This lowers the rate for the life of the loan, but you pay the discount points up front. 1 point is usually 1% of the loan amount. So if you purchase a $700,000 home, 1% will be $7,000. Now, typically, lower rates buy only a 0.25 per point, meaning it's a quarter of a point which you're buying down. So you need to also understand that you really have to speak with your lender when it pertains to this. And you really have to understand how it works, because there are some people who have the cash to put the money to buy their rate down. Some people do not. But here's the good thing. When you are negotiating a contract and you have a real estate professional such as myself, guess what? I put this in the contract. I negotiated down for my clients to have the sellers to pay for it. You know why? Because we're in that type of market right now where everything's negotiable. So if my client needs a lower interest rate, I will actually put it in there that the seller can actually pay down the rate for my client. Anything to help them get an edge. But that's what I do. Now, who pays for the buy down? Buyers pay out of pocket. They have to pay out of closing. Or the sellers, like I just mentioned, can pay as a concession, which is very commonly used right now because, again, we're in a buyer's market in most of the areas. So sellers are motivated to do so. Now, builders, they do this as an incentive for new construction. So a lot of times when you're dealing with new constructions, they'll give you up to $35,000 closing costs in some cases. They will buy down the interest rate. They will do any of these things to help sell the property. In this market, smart agents like myself negotiate for sellers paid buy downs instead of price reduction, because it lowers the buyer's payment more effectively. Now, price reduction is good, but you have to understand, unless you're doing a huge price reduction, in many cases, it's not going to really affect your monthly mortgage payment, like I mentioned at the beginning of this. The main focus should always be on making sure that you as a buyer are comfortable with the monthly mortgage payment. Whether the house is $1 million or $500,000, it doesn't matter if you cannot afford the monthly mortgage payment. And that's the main thing to be more comfortable with. So in cases, as I just mentioned, when we're talking about the rate buy down, the goal is to lower your monthly mortgage payment. That's the goal, because again, it's your monthly mortgage payment that you have to pay every month, regardless of how much the house costs. So, and then here's the thing. Why do rate buy downs matter? They matter because they lower monthly payments immediately. They increase buying power. They help deals close in a high rate market. And they could be the differential between a buyer qualifying or not. Because in many cases, buyers can qualify for a home loan, but they may not be able to afford the payment, because lenders tend to look at your debt to income ratio, your income, and also your credit. But here's the thing that lenders do not take into consideration. They don't take into consideration your life outside of what's on your credit report. Meaning, if you get your hair and nails done every month, when you have to put gas in your car, if you have to pay for childcare, the food that you eat, they don't factor in all of those things. So you have to really factor in those things to make sure that, okay, just because the lenders say you can afford $1 million doesn't mean that your budget is $1 million. And these are the ways that having a rate buy down can effectively help you to afford a monthly mortgage payment. So the rate buy down is very good and very critical for those people who are looking to buy a home, but they think they can't afford a home. And sometimes they're focused on the interest rate. Don't focus on the interest rate. Don't always focus on the month on the loan amount. Focus more so on your monthly mortgage payment after you have been approved, because that is the key to making sure that you are affordably living and that you're not living house poor. Because there are plenty of people who buy houses, turn around, live house poor. They can't afford the home. They have to either sell the home or try to sell it, or it goes into foreclosure because they did not strategize in the beginning. So these keynotes that I am giving you is to help you to be more effective and more buyer savvy when it pertains to purchasing a home. So we're going to go on next to the house of the week and the Q&A. All right, y'all. Please join me for the house of the week. Let me see. Do I have it here? Nope, I got it here. That's not it. This is it. Okay, this house of the week right here is an investor friendly home. This is priced at 315. It is located between exit 15 and exit 16 off the Beltway. It is near the Commander Stadium, near shopping. It's an investor special. It's priced below market value because of the condition and work that is required with it. It is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 3-level home. If you are a first-time home buyer or an investor, this will be a perfect home for you because the ARV is between 375 and 400,000. So if you have good contractors and you're very savvy with fixing up things and you want to do a flip, or if you just want to get it and hold it for the sake of an investment property, it is also a good fit. So we're going to go into our Q&A, and these are the questions and answers. And I like to thank each and every one of you all for always sending in your questions, because your questions are very, very good questions. Trust me, I love Q&A. This is one of my favorite parts of my show because I love answering these questions. So the first question is, something happening in the market right now that people aren't paying attention to? What's something happening in the market right now that people aren't paying attention to? And that is a great question. A lot of people are still talking like it's either a crazy seller's market or the market is about to crash. But the real shift is that the market is becoming more negotiable without becoming cheap. And what do I mean by that? Meaning there are much more houses on the market today, but you don't see prices dropping substantially. So you have to be very mindful of that. So it becomes more negotiable because, for example, there are houses that have been sitting for a while. There are houses where people say, okay, I've been keeping my eye on that house and everything. And right now, it's the perfect time for you to jump out there and stuff. Now, inventory has been rising in many areas. Price growth has slowed and builders are still leaning hard on incentives. Yet affordability is still tight because mortgage rates jumped yesterday up to 6.38%. That means buyers have more leverage on terms, credits, rate buy downs, and upgrades, even when prices have not fallen dramatically. It's all about negotiation. Now, the second under the radar issue is the lock-in rates is easy only slowly. More sellers are testing the market, relisting, and adjusting expectations of steady holding out for 2021 style bidding wars. That is quietly changing negotiation power by the market. And here's the thing. Time flies, y'all, and people don't seem to understand that we're in 2026. People still talking about the interest rate, which was back in 2021, 5 years ago. People are talking, and some sellers are talking about when their neighbor sold their house, which could have been 7 years ago. People don't seem to understand how much time changes. And I always say this, in real estate, everything is always the last 3 to 6 months in real estate. It's always what's happened within the last 3 to 6 months. Not that, oh, my neighbor sold their house, and then when I look it up, they sold their house a year ago. It's outdated. Even an appraisal on a home is only stamped on your home for 6 months. So people don't really have that understanding of the concept. And this is why I try to thoroughly explain it to people. Okay? Please keep that in mind. Question number 2. If you had to predict the market in the next 2 years, what would you say? If you had to predict the market in the next 2 years, what would you say? Honestly, I would not predict a dramatic national crash. I always like to tell people that depending on how the economy is flowing is going to determine what the market is going. Now, right now, we have a war going on. So a war tends to drastically change things. A war and recession have a big impact on the economy. because when people can't work, they can't buy things. Just like going into last year when many people have lost their jobs, many people put their houses on the market. That's why some of these houses with the inventory is going up. So if people can't work, they can't buy things. And if they can't buy things, they can't afford to buy a house. That's why they'll try to rent here and there and everything. I'll predict a slow, uneven reset. Naturally, the more likely story is modest sales improvement, slower appreciation, and a market that becomes more local and more skill driven. Fannie Mae's March of 2026 forecast still shows mortgage rates easing over time rather than collapsing, and both Fannie Mae and MBA projected only modest home price growth and gradual improvement in existing home sales, not a huge rebound or huge drop. In plain English, the next 2 years will probably reward people who buy or sell with strategy, not emotions. Homes that are priced right, updated right, and marketed right will move. Overpriced homes, tired listings, and sellers stuck in 2021 expectations will struggle. And buyers who wait for perfect rates may miss better negotiation windows that exist before everyone rushes back in. And that's true. Everyone comes in at the same time. You have to stick out in order to get in. That forecast is consistent with today's higher inventory, slower price growth, and persistent affordability pressures from elevated rates. Question 3. Are upgrades on new construction worth it, or should buyers do them after closing? Are upgrades on new construction worth it, or should buyers do it after closing? Now, usually paying the buyer for structural layout, electrical, plumbing, hard to redo items, cosmetics. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's always better to redo it later, because you have to understand that when you incorporate those things and allow a builder to do these things, they're going to tax you. Builders are going to tax you. Well, that's why they give these incentives and stuff, making it seem like they're giving you a good deal. That's why they want you to use their preferred lenders and stuff, because they're making it seem like they're giving you a good deal. The builders are going to tax you. If you have any good contractors that you work with or know of, you can save more money, thousands of dollars, but if you don't know what you're doing, if you're just projecting, oh, I want to get a new deck, and you don't do the research to find out how much it is, then you could be costing yourself a lot of money. I will always tell you to do the research first. If you're going to go through new construction, always get what the price will be with new construction, and then you don't have to sign right there, even though they try to give you the precious sale. Oh, sign right now. Somebody else is going to buy this property and stuff like that. They're always building. Just always remember that. They're always building with new construction. So if somebody buys that, it's going to be another one for you to buy. But do your research and everything. My recommendation will say to do things after closing. It will be cheaper for you. But the problem is many people don't do things after closing. I've seen plenty of houses that went up for resale. People said they were going to get a deck. They were going to do this, but they never did it. If you know you're not going to do something, I would suggest you to allow the builders to do it, because it will add to your resale value if you do decide to sell a house later on. But if you're really one of those people who are very intentional on doing things, I would strongly recommend that you do it after closing. Okay. Question 4. What should people actually read before signing the contract? What should people actually read before signing the contract? To be honest with you, people should read everything. Okay. Now, here's the reality. People don't read everything. Think about it. When you got your cell phone and you had to sign the agreement, did you read everything? No. But let me tell you what I did. When I got my cell phone bill, I read everything. And that's when I realized that companies like Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, all of them are selling our numbers and stuff. That's why your number is being given to people and stuff, because they say in the contract, we may sell your information to a third-party vendor. Yes, they said in the middle of all that. I read it. And that explains why your number, you'd be like, how do people get my number? Because it's a cell phone, because people don't read. The same thing when it pertains to real estate. When you hire a real estate professional, such as myself, I thoroughly go over everything with people. I explain everything from the steps from the very beginning, whether they're selling their home or they're buying a home. From the very beginning, I explain every step with them. I just don't go with them and just be tagging along. No, what good am I if I do that? No, but it's your responsibility to always read. Now, I would strongly recommend that you read the contract from the beginning to the end. You have any questions, ask your real estate professional, or your real estate professional can go over the entire contract with you. Should you actually read before signing a contract? Yes, because here's the reason. People lie. People tell you things. Oh, you don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about that. And if you ever go into court, the first thing the judges want to do is want to see the contract and what is written. Because in real estate, there's a rule of thumb. Everything has to be in writing. Everything has to be in writing. So it'll be on your best interest to make sure that you, yes, read any and everything before signing the contract. Question 5. If you could give one piece of advice to someone trying to change their life through real estate, what would it be? If you could give one piece of advice to someone trying to change their life through real estate, what would it be? My recommendation would be to try it. You know, here's the thing about real estate. People always say, I'm going to try real estate. But the truth is, real estate is going to try you. That's why you see so many people get into real estate and they get out of real estate. And then they're turning around and say, oh, I put my license on referral status. No, truth be told is you weren't selling anything. You couldn't, it wasn't for you, because if it was for you, you'll still be doing it, because plenty of people make a lot of money in real estate. I would say no one can tell you how high you can fly with your wings except you and your God. Because when I first got into real estate, I was told, I used to work at Metro, okay? There were people that I was working with who didn't think that I was going to sell a single house. I was in a relationship. The woman that I at the time was married to told me she didn't see me selling one house because there were thousands of real estate agents. And I told her, you do hair. There's thousands of hairstylists. And I also said these words to her. Only God can tell me how high I can fly with my wings, not you. Only God. And I say that to you. If you're looking to change your life through real estate, I would say go for it. If you want to join learn something, I am willing to help mentor people. You just have to reach out to me so we can hold a conversation, because my time is very limited, but I don't mind helping people, because we all need help, no matter when you started, where you started. Everybody was a rookie. Everyone started at the beginning. I'm not one of those people that's going to not try to help a person. Listen, we all need help from each other. So if you want to change your life through real estate, reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you, guide you along the way, because again, like I said, we all need help. And again, if you're looking to do real estate, whether you're looking to invest, whether you're looking to be a real estate agent or professional, whether you want to be an appraisal, whether you want to do anything, be a loan officer or anything, I would say go for it, because you never know. You could be the difference maker of so many people in your family, so many people in your community. No one can tell you, only you can tell you. All right. And only God can tell you as well, too. So those are great questions. Please keep them coming. Please keep them coming. If you all have any real estate questions, please always send them to me so I can answer them here online. So that way people can always refer back to them. All right. I'll be back with my topic of the day. And I want y'all to stick around, because I'm going to be talking about why ends, y'all. Okay. Yeah, I'm back. I said, now I'm about to go into my topic of the day about what are why ends. Okay. And the reason why I'm going to talk about what are why ends is because I've had people who ask me, what is a why end? Because they see it online. Even though many people know about it, truth be told, many people don't know about it. Now, why ends stands for young, NIGGAs, in plural, and then sometimes it's young, NIGGASHIT. Basically, it's young black males who are under the age of 30. They consider themselves YNs. Okay, that's the nickname for them. Basically, they ain't doing nothing with their life. Okay, that's what it is. Most people who doing with themselves, they're not being labeled like that. But unfortunately, you got so many people, parents who grew up in the hood, kids grew up in the suburbs, but they want to be hard. Everybody want to be tough. Everybody want to be hard. Everybody want to prove that they in the streets and all this. And they be watching Grand Theft Autos for so many years. They want to come out and live that way. That's why they talk about ops and everything, because of all that. It's translated over the years. All right. So what are YNs? YNs are a bunch of young men, black males, who ain't doing nothing with their life. They like to wear masks and hoodies in the summertime. They like to harass people. They grab guns. They want to do all this stuff, like I said, as if they're living Grand Theft Auto. Now, it's a negative connotation on the black community and black men, because you see no other races doing this. Don't get me wrong. You do see some Hispanics, are in gangs and stuff, but our people, for some reason, they want to all, act like they the hardest, toughest and stuff. Our mindset is terrible, to be honest with you. So what are young N's? Young NIGGAs under the age of 30 doing nothing with their life. That's what that is. So when you go to 7-Eleven or the grocery store and you see them out there bumming, begging, when you see them in groups, if you're in DC and they doing the teen takeover and everything, that's what that is. That's who they are. Yeah. Walking around, pants hanging down, mask over their face, want to act hard and stuff. That's who YNs are. Yeah, nothing. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. They ain't doing nothing. And unfortunately, I saw this morning where Frank Ski was online, and he was talking about having the parents be held accountable for their young adults, their children. And I agree with him, because unfortunately, it's gotten out of control, y'all. Some people that have never parented their kids. They wanted to be their kids' friend. So they want to be nice with them, spoil them, give them everything they want. So now these youngins feel entitled to things. They think somebody owed them something. So, but it goes back to the parents. It's unfortunate, because as parents, no parent was given an instruction on how to parent. You learned and did the parenting the best that you could. But there comes a time that even when you did it the best you could, when you realize something is wrong, you have to learn to do correction. The problem is nobody wants to do correction. Some people are scared of their own kids. And then some kids, have bullied their parents and threatened their parents and stuff. If you brought your kid into this world, you have the right to take them out. That's between you and God. Have a talk with God. That's what I will always tell people. Have a talk to God and how to deal with your kids, because those are your kids and you know how to deal with them. But here's the reality. If you don't deal with your kids, society's going to deal with your kids. Whether it is the police or whether it's the streets or whether it's karma. Nobody wants to see their kids hurt, in jail, or no longer here. Nobody wants to see that. Pray for your kids if they're totally out of control, because unfortunately, once kids get a certain age, there is nothing that you can actually do about it. But you can always pray for your kids and ask God to touch their heart, to touch their mind, and pray that they, know all the good that you've been poured into them comes around. Because what are y'all ends? They are just a bad reputation on us. Young NIGGAS. That's what they are. And there's nothing positive about that. So let me do a quick recap, and I'm going to let y'all go. I'll be right back. All right, y'all. So before I go, again, I like to always thank each and every one of you for joining me each and every Friday at 12 noon. I pray that you all are always gathering a nugget or two from, when I'm on my show talking to you all. I thank each and every one of you all. And again, next week we will be in April. I think that's Good Friday, I think it is. But nevertheless, I want you all to have a great weekend. And as always, I like to take y'all out on one of my commercials.
We sure could use the money.
Time for some upgrades. We're pregnant.
Oh my goodness, I need to downsize.
We buy houses for cash as is. Damon the Agent. A name you can trust.